Hi there, and welcome to the Money Effect, where I bring you all news, finance, topic, and money related, just for educational purposes. Let's get it. Let's go out the way. Let's go. So, what's been going on in the markets this week? What's been happening? Obviously, there's only going to be one place to start, and that is this ongoing war in Ukraine and Russia, which is really it's just really impacting everything, and it's going to be impacting everything. It's got an article here says the Dow in America has dropped 200 points for the week, but it's been volatile. It's literally moving. One day it'll be down. We're hearing escalation, Russia bombing hospitals, and this thing has gone too far. Um, at the end of the week, it was up because we heard Putin came out with a statement and said that the ceasefire talks were going well. Later on, it went down again because Ukraine were like, no, no, there's no peace talks, and it's really this is the main theme now. You turn on the news, we haven't got that C anymore. That's disappeared some miraculously, and it's all about the W now, war. So that's really kind of the main thing affecting markets, and just gonna have to see how it plays on. Obviously, I guess the main thing this week was um, the United States. They decided they were going to ban the import of Russian oil. Obviously, that's not going to really affect them that much. I think that account for like 3% of their oil intake. Obviously, they're or quite ironically, they're thinking Iran is going to increase their output, and Iraq and Venezuela, so they'll be able to handle it. So the markets weren't deeply affected. They actually rose because I think Europe, which I think two-thirds of their imports are from Russia, so quite major. Hence why they're building the Nord Stream 2. They've got the Nord Stream 1, these pipelines for their oil and gas and stuff like that. Obviously, they came out and said, at the moment they're not banning it yet. So off that, we saw crude oil actually, um, you know, it went to higher levels, and then it's come back down. Well, not back down dramatically, but it's back down to like 110, where it did rise to like 130 at one point. And obviously, everybody goes to, well, if you got petrol and you're going to the pump, you're feeling it. So at the moment, that's kind of where we're at with that. And yeah, that's probably anything that's going to escalate this. We've had some talk about um, Russia. I mean, Russia saying if NATO get involved, it's going to be, we're going to see some next kind of level of devastation. And now it's just like, what kind of involvement is that? We already know we're very unlikely to send in troops. Uh, Ukraine are asking for this no-fly zone. If that's implemented and NATO shoots down the plane, is that seems to be will definitely be crossing the borderline to World War III. But it also said, this supplying them with weapons. I believe Poland was going to give Ukraine some planes to help them fight their firefight in the air. America said no, absolutely not, because that imagine one of those planes somehow went into Russia and bombed Russia, like, well, that would actually be definitely an escalation. Russia asking for heavy artillery. I mean, Ukraine are asking for heavy artillery. Russia is saying if they do get that heavy artillery, that's kind of a escalation step. So at the moment, it's just really that's how it's playing out, and you just got to really kind of pay attention and see what happens in regards to that. The next big news is inflation. So we had more inflation data. We're going to have the Federal Reserve. Had the European Central Bank meeting this week. They kept interest rates steady, but they signaled that stimulus is going to be ending. So it's really it's a juggling act at the moment. Inflation is going up, and it just keeps going up, and it's just going to keep getting worse now because of this war. What do the banks do? Do the banks start raising rates? Well, if they start raising rates with all this high inflation, that's like a double whammy. Your gas bills are going up, your petrol bills are going up, and then suddenly your um, mortgage is going up as well. Your interest you pay on your credit cards is going up, and your interest and your overdraft, that's really going to hit the economy where we might be heading for recession. So, or do they delay and say, no, we're not going to do anything? But if they don't do anything, this situation can get even worse because then people keep spending. So, unfortunately, it's really it's kind of just an ongoing thing right now. We've got the Federal Reserve coming up soon. They're going to be a big mover. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that and see how things go. In in terms of stock news, we had some news from Amazon. So, they've announced a 20-for-1 stock split, similar to Google, similar to what Tesla done. And in theory, it's just kind of making the shares more accessible to the retail clients. I think one share of Amazon is like $3,000. Obviously, that's a lot of money, but doing a 20-for-1, you're going to get it at about 140, something like that. Obviously, that's more accessible and that's going to help retail. So, unfortunately, with all this backdrop and inflation and the war, probably might not be the best time to invest in stocks. But history has showed us that when these stock splits occur, 3 to 6 months down the line, we'd see the real rise. So if you're brave, this is a great time to kind of get into Amazon. It's fallen a lot already, and you can see it went up 6% on the news of this. But with everything that's going on, it's definitely going to be volatile. But if you're somebody, if you're looking for a company and you are investing in the market, then Amazon is definitely somewhere I would look. One place I wouldn't look though is China. So we've seen a lot of these Chinese companies, Neo, JD.com, Alibaba. We had the big issue last year of the Chinese government was trying to, lock down all these companies, and it's gone quiet for a bit in China, but it's back on again. And this week again, we see, some of these big companies again decline. So, if you've got any Chinese companies in your portfolio, you really have to, you've got to make a decision what to do now, because if they get delisted, they're going to basically be worth nothing. And if you haven't and you're thinking, oh, China's at low, it's really low, well, you need to know what's going on. This is why it's really low. So, probably an area for me, like it says there, it's not for the faint-hearted. I personally wouldn't be looking at China right now. They've got some elections coming up at the end of the year. Maybe once that's done and their leader, becomes, I think, was it president or prime minister or whatever for life, maybe then he'll ease up and stop all this regulation and all this talk, and these stocks will then rise. So yeah, keep an eye on it. But right now, it's they're just going lower and lower. Okay, what's going on in crypto? So crypto had a big week as well. Again, choppy week, volatility. I said in my previous video, volatility. That's going to be one of the words. And it had a big week because Biden did an executive order, and the executive order was basically saying, you know what, crypto is a real thing. Now we just need to know how to manage it. On one hand, it's been seen as a positive because obviously that's similar to when the internet came about, when people said the internet's not real, and the administration at that time said, okay, the internet's here to stay. Let's find a way to regulate it. And obviously, we've seen what the internet has become. That's kind of the stage where crypto is right now, where Biden has said, you know what, this is a real thing. How are we going to manage it? There's some loose regulation, but different people have got different regulators. And he said, you know what, I want an executive order. Let's all come together and let's get some regulation. This ain't going nowhere. It's here to stay. Could be the future. Let's at least try and regulate it. So obviously, on one hand, that's kind of legitimized crypto, and there was a rally on crypto on that basis. On the other hand, you know, more regulation. We've seen what's been going on with Russia. Russia have been faced with all these sanctions. We discussed about Abramovich and losing Chelsea and all this, and a lot of people are worried that, hold on, these people that are under sanctions could just use Bitcoin to funnel their money. Hence, we need to regulate it so that can't happen. And that's really, and if that's happening, that's kind of the premise of what a Bitcoin is. That's a use case of Bitcoin, that it's above, it's out of, you can't just take man's football club. You can't just seize man's bank account. You can't just seize a Bitcoin. Okay, there was an example of somebody in Ukraine that got made. Obviously, they've lost their homes. Sad what's going out there. And all they had was their Bitcoin, key on a piece of paper. They crossed the border, they got to Poland. They were able to use that Bitcoin key to exchange it from cash, and then they've got some cash to kind of, sustain them while they adjust to their new reality. Again, that's a great example of a use case for Bitcoin, because so you wouldn't be able to do that. If you've got a bank account in Ukraine right now, obviously we have internet banking, but if your bank, all the money's kind of shut down, or if your money's under your couch and you couldn't get it out, especially big amounts, this is a great use case for Bitcoin. So, but like I said, on the other hand, it can be used by people to avoid sanctions because of it. So if you've got regulation there, then that kind of takes away the use case to make it open and honestly, because now it's going to be regulated. So again, a volatile week for Bitcoin, positive news, and it just depends how you see it. For me, I think it's positive news. I think it kind of establishes that cryptocurrency is the future. There's still so many cryptos out there. You've got all this NFT stuff, metaverse, and all this blah blah blah. But there are some decent cryptos that are going to really change the world, I think, in 5 to 10, 20 years. And yeah, it's kind of like we're at that point now where everybody's like, yo, this ain't going nowhere. Let's find out how we're going to manage it, and let's find out how we're going to tax it. Because if you're saying it's not real, you can't be taxing something that you're saying is not real. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. And then commodities. So yeah, everything's going up. I said this year, I said it from early, one of the big themes would be inflation, raw materials would go up. Obviously, I didn't predict war, so it's gone up way more than I'd thought. But we've seen petrol. Anyone that's going to the pump, you've seen how much the price of petrol is now. It's got dramatically high because obviously Russia and they're oil producer, and people would be like, nah. We saw Shell during the week. Funny company, Shell. They thought they would pull a fast one. They bought some discounted Russian oil. From who knows what kind of discount they got it for, but I'm sure it was a pretty nice discount for them. They got the Russian oil, and then they faced a lot of backlash because people were like, right, you're getting Russian oil for discount. You're just like profiting from the situation. And even they've had to say now, you know what, we're not going to be messing with Russian oil anymore. Obviously, they said they were to keep supply going, but obviously they were just trying to make a quick buck, and who wouldn't if they're selling it to you for so cheap? So obviously nobody's messing with Russia on that level. Like I said, the European Union, they've backed away from it at the moment because as opposed to, I don't think in the UK, I think banned as well, but they actually heavily dependent on it, so it's a lot different to America. 3% compared to 2/3 is a lot different. So we'll see, if Putin starts doing a madness, which he's doing already, but if he starts going overboard, then obviously they'll have to take that off the table to really squeeze Russia, and then we're going to see some mad rises. And one of the things we've seen this week, nickel, I think it's a lot produced in Russia, and nickel, they even had to halt it. They had to halt it because people just losing too much money. This thing was worth 30,000 on a Tuesday. Last Friday it was worth 30,000, and next Tuesday it's dumping to 100,000. You know what I'm saying? So that's just, look at it, crazy amounts. So that's just one commodity, and you've seen how this war is affecting supply is going to be hit, and it's just adding to this inflation drama and this story. And yeah, until this, it's not gonna. I don't see how it's gonna change really. We're hearing a lot of stuff about more people are now saying we're gonna move to renewables. That's always been a theme, and yeah, I'm sure that they're not gonna happen overnight. So you've kind of got to bear with it till it happens. But it's definitely not going to happen overnight, but it's what people are looking at now. So yeah, high prices are here to stay. I think at the moment they're falling a little bit because the situation, people getting used to it, is a bit calmer. But if it gets elevated up, raw materials, oil is going back up, and once it goes up, it rarely ever comes down. So that's what's been going on in the markets this week. I hope you've enjoyed the video. The Money Effect signing out. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.